The What to Read Next podcast helps you build a TBR of future favorite books. In each episode, Lori and Amin interviews authors and book influencers to recommend books they loved for you to pick up today. If you're an avid reader, always looking for your next great read, then the show's for you. Hi, Abby. Welcome to What to Read Next podcast.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So happy to have you here. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you can hear, I'm from the deep south. No, I'm not. No, I'm from England, but I've been here a very, very long time now. I came here in 1991 when I was 21, and I've stayed ever since. But my mother is actually American, so I'm sort of I'm actually sneaky half American, half English person. So I have both passports. So I moved here a long time ago, and I've now lived here longer than I ever lived in England. I don't know why the accent has stuck, but it has. So I'm secretly American.
You're secretly an American. Yeah. So what led you to move to the States? Was there,
Well, when I moved in 91, I had just gotten out of college, and the recession that had already passed here and was just hitting London. So it just seemed like it was easier for me to move to New York and get a job than it was to stay and try and find a job in London. And as I had the passport, because I have dual citizenship, I just thought, why not? And I had a friend in New York, and so I just came.
So I gotta have the question, because I'm a former New Yorker. What part of New York were you?
Upper West Side.
Upper West Side. Oh, yeah. I love this.
Yeah. I lived all over. I lived in Tudor City when I first moved there, which is this really teeny tiny micro neighborhood, right, by the United Nations. But I didn't know any better. And it was the smallest apartment I've ever seen in my life. Mm-hmm. And it was great, though. And I could walk to work. So, but eventually, when I had the real choice, I moved all over. Upper East Side, Upper West Side mostly.
I love this. Yeah, I ended up in Jersey City for 12 years in the waterfront. Like, just I had a view to the Statue of Liberty. It's like this random, beautiful, random place that you just happen to live. But yeah. New York is
I love New York. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What about Adult Assembly Required? Tell us a little about the elevator pitch.
Adult Assembly is about, which I also just call Adult Assembly, even though it is Adult Assembly Required. So okay. Anyway, the thing about Adult Assembly, it's about this girl who leaves New York, actually. She's a born and raised New Yorker. Mm-hmm. And she's had some mild trauma, and so her parents are really sort of getting on her tits. And so she's like, I'm going to start over. I'm going to move to Los Angeles. I'm going to go to grad school. I'm going to do something that my parents don't really approve of, but which I really want to do. And so she moves. And then she's only been here a week or two, and her apartment building burns down, and she finds herself in Nina Hill's bookshop. And Nina and Polly take her under their wing. So that's how it starts out, at least. And all shenanigans from there, of course.
So did you expect to write a follow-up book for after Nina, or was Nina just going to be a standalone and you just realized, there's more to tell about this world that you're creating,
Well, the thing is, as you probably know, the characters from my first book show up in the second book. Characters from the first two show up in the third. And now Nina is showing up, they're all showing up in the fifth. I just like writing about the neighborhood that I live in. And so all of these people sort of run into each other. Mm-hmm. But so it wasn't really so much a follow-up to Nina as it is, although she's in it quite a lot, actually. But it's all just the same community. Mm-hmm. It's the same group of friends. They all know each other. And so it's really about how Laura sort of, settles in with the group. And it was also fun to write Nina from the outside, right? Yeah. Because the Nina Hill book it's not written in her head, but it's a lot in her head, right? It's not first person, but it's super Nina centric. And so it was nice to write about how someone else might perceive her, right? Because, she's sort of a hero of her own book, but she's kind of a pain in the ass if you think about it. But she kind of is. And so Laura's a little bit like, dude, this chick is nuts. Which of course she is. But so that was fun, just to see a different side of Nina.
I love this. Yeah. And so what was your journey to publication? Where, how do you end up, get your first book deal?
A lot of luck, of course, which is sadly always the case. although, so also it's kind of my family business. My mum is a writer. My grandfather was a writer. So it's sort of like, it's sort of what you see, right? So I always thought that was what mothers did, is that they had kids and then they went into a room to get a moment's peace and, you know, smoked cigarettes and wrote books. It seemed like a perfectly reasonable thing to do. So I started doing that, and I wrote a couple of books. I worked in advertising, so that was my career. So I was an advertising copywriter and then a creative director. And so I was always writing for a living. And it's an excellent practice. It's really good. Advertising is a great career to go into if you want to write fiction. You're writing fiction most of the time. And then secondly, your work is constantly being rejected and criticized and torn apart for no reason. And so you get really, really blasé about it. And then when you finally start sending out your own work and it gets rejected, you're sort of like, okay. And you just keep going, you know. So I kept writing books, and the first one was crap, and the second one was slightly less crap. And then the third one was Garden of Small Beginnings. And that one took quite a long time to write because I had three little tiny kids at the time. And in the meantime, I wrote a book for a celebrity. I ghost wrote a novel, and that was how I got my first agent. So from there, I had an agent, and so then it was easier to send my own work to her. So that's the luck of it, was that I got hired to write a book for someone else.
So how is the writing? I'm always curious about ghostwriting with celebrities. Like, you know, the process, you don't need to tell the specifics, but the process of that, you know, do you meet with the celebrity a couple times? Like, how do you craft their voice and create their world?
Well, this was an unusual situation. So I'm not really speaking for general ghostwriters. I have a friend who's a real serious ghostwriter who actually works with celebrities or you know, all kinds of different people to tell their story. It's a whole different skill.
Yeah.
This celebrity was hiring me to write fiction because she wanted to write a novel. So she wanted to write a novel, but she didn't want to write the novel. She just wanted to anyway. So they hired me to write the book, and then she put her name on the front of it. And so that was fine because my name was on the check. And that was really all I really cared about at the time. I was like, yes, getting paid.
Oh my God. So my God. So what kind of genre was it? Was it
that was just women's fiction. You know, it was similar.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's a good entry point, random entry point that led you to open up the doors. So
yeah, I mean, it was great. And so because I had an agent, I was able to show her my work. And then actually that agent and I went back and forth on Garden. And in the end, I actually sort of moved away and ended up with a different agent. So, you know, it is the way it is. Life goes on.
Awesome. All right. So let's chat some book recommendations. What kind of genres do you tend to gravitate when it comes to reading?
Oh, I'm a complete so sadly, I don't really read my own genre very much. I read Golden Age mysteries is my jam.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
I am an Agatha Christie, Nia Marsh, Marjorie Allingham, Dorothy Sayers, like all your classic, mostly English, although I'm a huge Rex Stout fan, Nero Wolfe mysteries. I love all of those as well. So yeah, so I'm solid spinster crime solving. That's what I'm about. That's what I love.
Yeah, I love this. Yeah, I had quite a few authors talk about Golden Age mysteries, and I did not know it existed until this podcast. And now I'm like always curious. I'm like, oh, I know this one, and their love interest is this person. You know?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that they're so perfectly. Well, most of those writers that I mentioned are just excellent writers, right? Like, there's a reason that Agatha Christie, for example, is you know who she is because she writes perfect English. Like, she just writes the best, clearest sentences, the most deft characterization. Like, she's really very, very skilled. There's a reason why she's so successful. And so all of those writers, I think, focused a lot on character as well as plot. And that's what I'm interested in. You know, I'm not very good at plot, as you can tell. I'm more of a character writer than a big plotter. So, you know, I enjoy the tight plotting that they do. And yeah, I just find them incredibly reassuring. And that's what my mother is a murder mystery writer. She's retired now, but that's what she wrote. And so I grew up reading mysteries. So
and
that's my happy place.
Do you have any books to recommend our readers to pick up?
Well, if they're not already reading Agatha Christie, then they should be. Yeah. So that's where they should start. And then Dorothy Sayers is also, she wrote some excellent mysteries. And then, there's any good librarian can direct you to a plethora of Golden Age writers. They're all good. They're all very good. And then current, I still, if anybody hasn't read Let's Pretend That Never Happened by Jenny Lawson, then they should. Like, they should just, before they read my book, before they read anyone's book, they should go out and read that book, because it's incredibly funny. It's just like mind-bogglingly funny. She's brilliant. She's a genius.
I love this. All right, so tell us where you can find you online.
Well, I'm a hopeless, as my teenage daughters will tell you, hopeless, technically. So I'm really only on Instagram. So you can find me on Instagram, unsurprisingly, Abbi Waxman, all one word. And I'm there every day, and I do check my Instagram, and I do reply to people. And if people want a signed book plate, they could just send me an email. I'll send them a signed book plate, all through Instagram. I don't do Twitter or Facebook.
It's okay. Yeah. It's okay. So thank you, Abbi.
TikTok. I don't do TikTok either, because if I get on TikTok, the whole platform is going to go down instantly. That's going to be the end of it. So I promised my children I wouldn't ever get it. It's so much.
It is okay. So thank you, Abbi, for being in the show.
Oh, it's really my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
If you enjoyed this podcast, feel free to share with friends, subscribe, rate, and review the show. This is the easiest way to support this podcast. For a list of books mentioned and other romance recommendations, please visit whattoreadnextblog.com. The What to Read Next podcast is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Please visit frolic.media/podcast to discover new shows to tune in. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.